this is gonna be unedited. Most of my gameplay, game day, whatever reviews that I'm gonna do are gonna be unedited. Um, I'm just gonna go over the games. I kind of want to give my own personal reaction instead of cutting it down and showing people like what I what I would want people to think. Um, there's gonna be some things I say about the Eagles that people might not like. There's if we get into a rough patch here and there, I'm not talking about this year, but I'm talking about in the future. And I just want people to see my honest opinion on the games. So we're gonna start preseason week one, Eagles at Ravens. Eagles win on a miraculous field goal. First quarter, on the first offensive drive, the Eagles turned the ball over on downs at the Ravens 42-yard line. Um, I I'll get to the breakdown of each individual player. I'm gonna go over the scores, some turnovers, the major parts of the game that concluded into the score. Uh, Justin Tucker kicked a 46-yard field goal. Justin Tucker's pretty much automatic. That was the first points of the game in the first quarter. Kenny Pickett threw a 7-yard touchdown to running back Will Shipley. The extra point was unsuccessful from Jake Elliott, which was very surprising. In the second quarter, Justin Tucker kicked a 21-yard field goal, and the Ravens and Eagles ended up tied 6-6 at halftime. So uneventful scoring, uneventful, not a much turnovers. First half was pretty stale, and I think the first half of most of the games in week one of the preseason were pretty stale. Third quarter, Eagles running back Lou Nichols ran in a 2-yard touchdown. Getting into the fourth quarter here, um, Ravens quarterback Devin Leary, he had a QB sneak for a 1-yard touchdown. Jake Elliott doinked a 50-yard field goal off the right upright with 16 seconds left. Following that miss, Eagles linebacker Ben Van Sumeren got a strip sack on Ravens quarterback Emory Jones, and Eagles edge rusher. I don't know. I I don't know if they view him as a linebacker or an edge rusher, so or a defensive end. But we're gonna say Patrick Johnson. He recovered the fumble at the Ravens 32-yard line. Jake Elliott made a 49-yard game-winning field goal. Eagles won 16-13. So, go with some of my game day notes while I was watching the game. Eagles opened up the game with Kenneth Gainwell as a kick returner who called for a touchback. So it's interesting to see Kenneth Gainwell doing returns. Um, I know Britton Covey is going to be doing punt returns, obviously. Boston Scott in previous years had been doing kick returns, which I wasn't even a fan of when Boston Scott was doing them. I love Boston Scott. I don't like him doing returns. I like Gainwell. I don't like him doing returns. I think there are a lot of other players that could be better returners. I don't want to possibly get a running back hurt. Running backs tend to go through them like they're nothing. Um, Eagles defense opened up with a five-man D line, something I have been waiting for. Anyone who knows has read my articles has known how much I love a five-man D line in the NFL. And I think it's something that they missed significantly last year when Gannon left. He took the five-man D line with him to Arizona, and Vic Fangio, I'm so glad he came back and he gave us the five-man D line again. I think matchup wise, a five-man D line just works so much better in the NFL. It creates a lot of pressure that you don't necessarily need a lot of when like you need more pressure caused in a four-man D line and a five-man D line. All you need is one guy to beat their man in front of him, and hopefully they get a sack. On you basically force as an offense to have a tight end blocking or have a running back blocking, and that's one less target for the offense to go up against. So I love a five-man D line. I think if I'm a head coach in the NFL, I that's what I'm looking for in a defensive coordinator, or that's what I'm implementing as a head coach as a five-man D line. I think it's just great. Mekhi Becton seems to be the starting right guard right now, but Tyler Steen, I believe he did a solid job in the run game. He does need to develop as a pass blocker. I think he did an okay job. I think he did a pretty good job. At one point, I wrote down he's doing a great job, and then when it came to passing plays, that's when it kept going down for me with Tyler Steen. But he's got a lot of potential. Becton, a former first round pick, he has a lot of potential with how big he is. Uh, Going in Jeff Stoutland's offense, I think there's a lot of potential there for Becton to be a very good guard for this team. Um, Johnny Wilson, he is blocking his way into the 53-man roster. I was messaging one of my friends during the game, and I'm thinking, I don't know how you keep him off the field. You have to figure out a way to keep Johnny Wilson on the field. I get it. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith are obvious ones, but how can you not keep him off the field with how good of a blocker he is? Never mind as a receiver, as huge as he is, which is likely why he's such a good blocker. But he's just so good you can't at blocking that you can't take him off the field. You have to keep him on the field. I won't be shocked if our offense ends up AJ Brown and Johnny Wilson out there on run plays because of how big of those two are. I love Devonta Smith. He's clearly not as big as Johnny Wilson. I was thinking to myself, maybe in a perfect world, if Johnny Wilson is takes his height and uses it like Harold Carmichael did or like Calvin Johnson, then maybe we can have AJ Brown and Johnny Wilson out wide and Devonta Smith in the slot. I would like that. And you know what? You could argue Johnny Wilson in the slot. It doesn't matter to me. I prefer shifty guys, route runners in at the slot position. Grant Calcaterra seems like the runaway tight end too here. I He had a great night. Um, yeah, it just seems like he's running away. I've heard at camp he's done really well. Uh, I I'm not shocked. There is a lot of other tight ends still on the team that I'm waiting for. CJ Uzama, uh, Albert O. I know I'm gonna butcher the name. I practiced as soon as we got him. I practiced saying his name. Akue Bunam. I don't. I'm more than likely not pronouncing that name right, and I apologize. But I'm looking forward to see how they do. Maybe they can give Grant Calcaterra a run for his money, but he's the runaway tight end too right now. Will Shipley looked like a very patient running back, which is amazing to have behind the Eagles' offensive line. I think you think of some of the greatest patient runners like O.J. Simpson, Le'Veon Bell, LaDainian Tomlinson. There's a lot of like some of the great patient runners. If they had the best offensive line in the league to run behind, which sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't, then they had some of the greatest years from a running back. And I think the Eagles clearly have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And I think Will Shipley can be a very good complementary piece to Saquon Barkley in this offense. Britton Covey looked more comfortable as a receiver and returner than we have seen him in previous years. At returner, I always got worried that he was going to fumble, bobble the ball. He worried me. And at returner, he was strong. He was a fighter. He kept fighting for extra yards, and that was amazing for as small as he is. I think he looked so much better. If this was this time last year, I would have said I want him cut. This time, I'm glad to see he's progressed into the player he is. At receiver, it seemed like Kenny Pickett was finding a groove with him a lot. And yeah, Britton Covey looked really good. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He was everywhere on the field. His first special teams snap, and he goes and gets a tackle. He was great on pass rush. He was great at run stopping. He was everywhere. He's looks really good. He definitely provided a much bigger spark at linebacker than any of the other linebackers did in the game, outside of Ben Van Sumeren, which we'll get to. Keely Ringo was tested a lot and played lockdown against whoever it was in front of him. His one catch he allowed was a sideline diving catch, which I don't think there's any corner in the NFL that would have been able to stop that. You would have had to have read the receiver's mind in order to have stopped that catch. So Ringo did phenomenal. Some people are saying he should be cornerback too. I think he's proven that he could. If Quinyon Mitchell can play slot, then that's the cornerback group. That's the starting corners. Aeneas Smith did not look good at all on punt returns. That was his one best return came after he fumbled the ball out of bounds. So I've heard at camp this week that he is getting chewed out by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he doesn't look very good at all. So hopefully he can improve. But I don't. He's not doing very good at receiver that I've seen in camp. He's not doing. He was definitely was not good at returner in the Ravens game. So I don't really want to see him until he improves. So maybe preseason's perfect time for him to improve. I don't know. Uh, Tanner McKee looks so great. His stat line won't show it because the receivers were dropping passes and getting zero separation. And going back to Aeneas Smith, I heard Tanner McKee tried throwing him a ball with no separation, and Aeneas Smith just dropped the pass. So yeah, Tanner McKee, I think he's the clear and obvious quarterback too. I hated that the Eagles traded for Kenny Pickett. Um, McKee just I call him Tanner McQB too, because he looks really good. I want to see him get a shot. More than likely not with the Eagles, but I'm very comfortable that if something ever happens to Hurts, I really like our odds with Tanner McKee. Um, Ben Van Sumeren, he is one guy that just continues to impress me. He more than likely isn't going to make the 53-man roster. He, I can't remember if I don't think he did last year. If he did, he was one of the final players to make the team. He's not really getting a shot to start, but I really like him. And he plays well. He runs all over the field. He's not great in coverage. I get that, but he's great at tackling, and that's what impresses me the most. Uh, and Jake Elliott, when in doubt, or when in doubt, even after miss, in the end, Jake Elliott will still make each field goal. That he'll make the game-winning field goal if he needs to. So I want to talk about the beginning of the game. Obviously, the offensive starters aren't gonna play. I think there's a lot more comfort. I think the offense is more comfortable on switching to Kellen more than the defense is to Vic Fangio, because the offense, all the players are really this. It's the same group of players that's there outside of running back and center. It's center right guard. Jurgens moved over to center, so we still have Jurgens. We just have a new right guard. Um, no Jason Kelsey, obviously, and the running back situation goes to Saquon Barkley. The defense struggled so much last year that I understand Vic Fangio's philosophy of getting all the starters in there. The It was shocking how the secondary looks. James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox are the backup safeties, which is if they're okay with playing that position, and they play well, that's such a interesting safety. I don't think there is a deeper and more talented safety group than in the NFL. You have four guys who could start at either corner or safety on all 32 teams. James Bradbury definitely would start on quite a few teams. James Bradbury would definitely start on a few teams at corner, and James Bradbury would definitely start on a few teams at corner. Vontae Maddox would definitely start on a few teams at corner, maybe even safety. Obviously, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship, they definitely would start on a few teams. But you have four starters at safety. We're not even talking about Sidney Brown. I really like Sidney Brown. Uh, so there's five guys there that are talented enough to start on this team, and they're playing safety. And I like that because we have a lot of depth at corner. Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, Keely Ringo. I really like Eli Ricks's potential. I think he can be very good and a great asset against speedy corner or speedy wide receivers. Um, then we have Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean can play corner and safety, so he could even maybe play some linebacker. Who knows? But I really like the way the secondary looks, especially putting five man on the D line. Corner, the whole secondary doesn't need to do as much work, and that's why the Eagles were able to go to the Super Bowl a couple years ago because the five-man D line created so much pressure on the quarterbacks that the secondary didn't need to cover their receiver for too much too long. So yeah, I really like how the secondary's coming together. Linebacker is probably the weakest position. Um, if Trotter plays to his potential, then I think we have a lock at linebacker. Devin White, I haven't really seen too much anything spectacular from him, which I honestly never really did expect anything spectacular from him. If anyone's read how I feel about Devin White, I've just never thought he was that great of a linebacker. I think he benefited a lot from Levante David, who is a great linebacker. I do believe he's a Hall of Fame level linebacker, but he'll never get the that type of hype. I said it when the Bucks won the Super Bowl, and every Bucks fan said, "No, you're wrong. Devin White's awesome." And the last couple years, that's been oh so wrong for Bucks fans. They see what I see. So, yeah. Then there's Zach Bond. Zach Bond saw him on the Saints. I've been pretty much watched any snap that he's played as a Saint, and he's just never been that type of guy. He really shouldn't be starting on this team. Uh, some people think he should be an edge rusher. I don't think he's cut out to play to be a starter. I think he can be a rotational piece, maybe. But then Nakobe Dean, if in a perfect world, having Nakobe Dean and Jeremiah Trotter play at a high level would be the perfect defense for the Eagles. So, but otherwise, defense looked. I'm not going to say in this game, defense looks overall the way it's being set up really well, really good. I think there's a lot of potential there. And on offense, I honestly don't expect any sort of drop off. I think there will probably be a drop off in terms of screen games, tosses, those type of plays to that Jason Kelsey was missing. So, yeah, I don't. That's probably the biggest miss is just missing Jason Kelsey. Not having Fletcher Cox there, the defensive tackle group was already great. Um, and now with the five-man D line, that proves my whole philosophy. You have Jordan Davis at defensive tackle, Jalen Carter, or at nose tackle, Jalen Carter and you could have Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu, even Brandon Graham at the other spot. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with even after the retirements of two legends of the game for the Eagles. I'm very comfortable with how the team looks. Pretty much the biggest worry was Jake Elliott missing those kicks, but I trust Jake Elliott can get into a better groove. So, but that's my whole take on the Ravens Eagles game from the Eagles perspective. Hopefully I'll be doing this every single week. So, thanks for listening.